Hello and welcome everyone to Spherical Luminosity's YouTube Live. We are mixing it up tonight and doing some new things, which I'll introduce you to in just a little bit. For now, though, the topic for tonight that we're discussing is finding your center and even thriving during a financial meltdown. So if you wouldn't mind just putting your first name and where you're from in the chat so I can greet you. I'm going to actually turn my head so I can actually see the screen. So we have Susan from the Seattle, Washington area. Hello, Susan. And we have Carol coming in from Scottsdale, Arizona, and Marlene from Albion, California, and Loretta from Florida. Hello, Loretta. And let me see. Who else do we have here? We have Kate from Iowa and a whole bunch of other people that I haven't had a chance to say hello to, but welcome. And it's good to have you all here for such an important topic at this important time. Now, for those of you who don't know me, many of you do know who I am and some of you don't. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Karen Cheong, and I help to catalyze awakening and a rise in consciousness by releasing what I call distortions at the frequency level so that you can realize and live your true nature as abundant and limitless consciousness. So the time to awaken to this is now, and we are excited to have this topic because I think it's really timely. If you don't know who I am and what frequency work is, I do recommend that you watch episodes 1, 2, and 176 of our podcast, Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, which you can find on this very same channel. It is free. And at the very end, I give a group frequency calibration, which is where all the work happens and where the change actually begins. So I suggest checking those out, or you can check out the How It Works section of our website, sphericalluminosity.com. So for tonight, like I said, we're shaking things up and doing things a little differently. Now, a number of you have watched the Mastering Your World Through Frequencies podcast, and you have seen me in action with my co-host, Fiona Malcolm. And we're very lucky because we have both of us here live. And what she's going to do is she's going to ask me questions live. You will get a chance to ask your Q&A just like you always do. But we thought it'd be fun if she could ask me questions live so we could have sort of like a live Mastering Your World Through Frequencies episode, but in dynamic action with you all. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Fiona. And Chris is going to switch over to our handy dandy setup. All right, Fiona, I'm going to let you take it away.
Well, I guess really the first question would be, why did you pick this topic at this time? Is there a particular reason?
Yeah, well, I feel like I've been talking for a while about this time where there is a rise in instability, a rise in uncertainty, and systems breaking down and that type of thing. So we are starting to see that happen now, where large banking institutions are failing, and there has been a government bailout of the Silicon Valley Bank so far. There have been other banking institutions that are failing, and it's interesting to watch that system sort of shake because there is a lot of abuse oppression within that system. And as that system breaks down, there's a lot of fear that's rising because people are facing losing their savings, which is terrifying. And there's a lot of uncertainty that's rippling out from the breakdown of those financial institutions. And so I think when we're faced with that kind of instability, the very foundation or cornerstone of what we think safety is in the financial institutions, we see that starting to break down. We start to see, stories of inflation starting to rise and things getting much more expensive and, layoffs and that type of thing. It can become a really uncertain time. So I feel like this is a really important time to address this because my feeling is things are going to ramp up and the collective is going to start to go into more and more fear. So it's really important to know how to stay centered in this time and then also how to thrive. So that's why that topic came in.
It's kind of interesting for me because when I hear how to stay centered,
Mhm.
and then how to thrive
Mhm.
in the midst of this financial instability. It sounds like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
It really does sound like a little bit of horse poo driving past on a motorbike. Is it even possible?
Yeah, it is. And part of what we're facing right now is, or not facing, we have the opportunity to experience is to rise in consciousness.
Mm.
Now, just to back up for people who don't know what I'm talking about, at this, what does that mean? So, a consciousness level shift simply has to do with your vibrational level. Okay. And so, meaning all of the consciousness levels exist. Whether you can access them has to do with your own vibrational rate or your own, what I call frequency resonance. Okay. So, right now, this level of consciousness, the one that many of us are choosing to leave, is rife with fear, scarcity, greed, and just a lot of lack. Okay. And so, part of what the shakeup is to face that fear of not having enough, of that having enoughness being dictated by something external to you, so that you can release your attachment to it, your fear of not having it, all that sort of stuff, so that you can connect to something greater and recognize your own strength so that you can create and feel your own abundance without needing that um, external validation of money. Okay. So it's kind of ironic because when you start to get to that level of resonance, when you start to quote unquote not need it as much, that's when it starts to come in. And it sounds like you said, like a fairy tale and a horse poo, because you're just like, well, gee, that sounds great, but that's not my experience. Because really, I'm just in a lot of scarcity. I'm terrified because I'm not sure how I'm going to pay the rent next month, Karen. And the thing is, when you come up against that fear, when you come up against that like terror of like, oh my God, how am I going to make it? Am I going to survive? It's funny when we meet these crossroads where we're pushed sometimes to these places where we didn't think we could sustain. We sometimes have to drop into surrender. And in that surrender, and believe me, I'm not saying it's easy, but when you're in that surrender, then you connect to something that is far greater than yourself, a strength that you didn't know you had, and something radical can shift. And then what happens is you can access a higher level of abundance because money is a distorter, actually. It can be. Okay, so money, let me just back up. That was actually inaccurate. Money is an amplifier. So it will amplify distortion and it will amplify clarity. For some of you to access a higher level of abundance, you have to release the distortion so that when you experience that abundance again, you're not experiencing the distortion. Does that make sense? Because you've cleared it.
Yeah, and it actually reminds me of a time where we were in a lot of financial stress. Yeah, and in fact, we had very little money. In
Mhm.
fact, we were coming into a Christmas, and I have two kids, and there was no way I was going to be able to pay the rent this
Mhm.
month, buy Christmas presents. It was the worst scenario that a mother and a dad wanted to be in.
Mhm.
And we were embarrassed, we were mortified, we were grief stricken. How would we explain this to our kids? And we're at that point. Well, we've pushed, we've willed a different scenario. Nothing has changed. And my husband and I were talking about this because we were going over what was it that we did? How did we get through that? And I know that at the time we knew, but when you move on to a different frequency resonance, you kind of have to remember what you did in the past
Yeah, to shift it, you mean?
to shift it. Yeah. And I remember that we called it surrender, but it was actively surrender.
Mhm.
And I said to my husband, how did we do that? Do you remember how we did that? And it was exactly, we had to use the tools every day, like
Mhm.
first thing in the morning, middle of the day, just before bed, 3 o'clock in the morning when you woke up with panic attacks, how am I going to pay the rent? And when we did that, when we went in and we just dedicated every minute to the work, the frequency work,
Mhm.
keeping the resonance high, don't buy into the fear, don't let your mind run away with the stories, things started to click into place. And by things, it wasn't obvious.
Mhm.
You know, a friend of mine received an inheritance and she decided that she wanted to gift some money. So we were able to get Christmas presents and pay the rent that month. The following month, we kept doing the work. We kept looking for work. The following month, my parents sold their house and they had money and they could gift us money. We got through the next month. And as we got stronger in resonance and we changed, the reality that we were living in, we started to make things happen for us. And, we've changed our whole life, as you can see. But I would agree with this active surrender, but to get there, it's the work.
Yeah.
Right?
To do the frequency work. And what I remember from that time is that those what seemed like miracles, that came in to provide at that time, they kind of came out of left field. They weren't like planned or anything like this. And then it sort of started to, from what I noticed as your vibration rose, is that not only did those sort of magical intercessions come in to help, opportunities start to open, like you said. So you guys continue to do the work. Then opportunities start to arrive for your husband that were different.
Exactly.
That started to happen. And then it just started to like snowball at this like escalating rate. And it's sort of strange how quickly things shifted from like really kind of terrifying and horrible, like you really were just like, I don't really know how we're going to pay for anything, to really moving into a new opportunity for him. You all of a sudden could buy things for yourself that were like not necessary. Like I remember a time when you were like, how am I going to afford to buy groceries?
Yeah.
Like it was that bad.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I have enough money to buy like a luxury grocery, not something that it's like, I really have to like figure out, okay, how much do I have? So and it happened really, really fast, actually.
Yeah,
I mean,
when you look
given the
back,
context.
at the time it felt like hell.
Yeah.
I thought, I'm never getting through this. What is this work? It's a pile of
horse crap.
It's all nonsense.
Yeah.
But I stuck with it. So did my husband, and it does pay off.
Yeah.
There is a point where you hit that tipping point.
Yeah.
And you clear
enough
of the density, anyways, that you don't need to have it confirmed
Yeah.
in your reality
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say for people watching this, like, okay, well, you still haven't told me how it is that I may maintain my center. So what was key in your story, if I may, was that it wasn't like Fiona wasn't scared, because you were.
Terrified. Terrified.
Yeah, there's a lot of stress going on. Yeah, as you can imagine. So it's not about being fearless.
No.
It's about recognizing that you have the fear and doing the frequency work anyway.
Yeah.
And what happens is you get really strong internally. So what that means is, like, what does that mean to get internally strong? To me, it means that you start to have a lot more space from your thoughts and your emotions. So you can see your own patterns of fear. You can see your own patterns of scarcity. You can see your own patterns of attachment, of yearning, of desire, of not enoughness, of all that stuff that's like all enmeshed and wrapped up, all the lineage patterns, the control patterns. Like you see it for some of you, to get to that higher level of abundance, you're kind of like ripping off the Band-Aid.
Yeah.
And if I may, for you, there's a lot of lineage patterns around that.
Ooh.
So there's a lot to rip off.
Oh, self-worth was in there.
Yeah.
I'm not worthy. I can't do this. I'm not good enough.
I'm
I
not
don't
strong
deserve
enough.
this. I'm not strong enough.
Yeah. All that stuff was up.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just like, you're like ripping off the Band-Aid. And I think the lesson, or one of the things that people can take away from that, is there was something in you that was like, I am not staying here in this fear. I could stay in this fear, but I refuse. I'm just not gonna, I refuse to have this reality. I don't want it.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm like running through the fire, because I want it to be better.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people right now, the fear is not just internal, like the voice for you of like, right, of like that all that stuff that was going on inside your head.
Yep.
What's happening is you had your own form of external fear, which was the lack of money.
Yep.
For a lot of people right now, they may have enough, but there's all this story and this propaganda and other people who are freaking out about the possibility of not having enough.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that, because who's creating it then?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. And so it's really important, because we can feel like, oh my God, we don't have enough.
Uh-huh.
because of what's happening externally.
Or they're telling me
Yeah,
I'm not going to have
have
enough.
enough.
You
Exactly.
better panic.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. You better start panicking now.
So you create this whole resonance field
Mhm.
of fear.
Exactly.
So what are you creating?
Right.
Exactly the same
Same
thing
thing.
that you're panicking.
Yeah, exactly. So you create more fear, more panic, more lack, more worry, more anxiety, more scarcity.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to really be mindful of your own frequency resonance, of your own fear. I didn't say to be fearless, okay, because you're going to have it, but to be aware, like, okay, that's fear. All right, I'm aware of it. Okay, I'm going to let myself feel it. Now I'm going to confirm, remove it. I'm going to do the frequency work to release it. Now, a lot of people are like, well, I've already done that once or twice or 3 times. For some people, like for me also, my pattern originally was a lot of fear and a lot around scarcity. That's my lineage stuff. We have that in common.
Yeah.
And man, it's not a fun gig, you know what I mean? To like sit there and be in that fear of, because it feels like if you don't have enough, you're going to die, or you're going to be annihilated, or something terrible is going to happen. It's like that. At least that is what it was for me.
Yeah.
So to recognize when you're having that, and then to do the work to release it, and to recognize when it's being like stirred up by something external,
Yeah.
because that's happening right now.
Yeah.
A lot.
And watch your triggers.
Yeah, exactly.
Watch when you're being triggered.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's vigilance,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yeah, to be really aware of all that. And so, how do you find your center? Okay. This is like super simple, and it's going to sound to some of you like I'm banging on about the same thing over and over again. But things on spirit level are actually much simpler than we think. Okay? We really, as humans, I don't know why we like to complicate things. Like there has to be like some special magic formula with 17 steps that you have to do in a certain body position, just right, wearing white, with your hair a certain way. I'm kind of making light, but we kind of make it complicated. Honestly, to come into your center is about coming into the 0 point of space and time. So to become aware of your body, present in that moment, and being aware of your connection to source constantly, constantly, because you're bringing yourself into the center. Like, what is true for me right now? Where am I? Where is my breath? What is the space between my toes? That type of thing. So you're really present in the body. And then you can start to scan, okay, when you're present in the body, do I actually feel fear, or am I supposed to feel fear right now in the face of this news or in response to something? Like scanning yourself, being aware, so that you can start to feel or discern the difference between like what you actually feel and what you think you're supposed to feel, what you might feel in the future. All that, you start to feel that nuance. Does that make sense? But the key is to be present in the body, centered in it, aware, present in time, and aware of your connection to source constantly. Why? Because when you come into the 0 point of space and time, and if you don't know what the 0 point is, I do recommend episode, I believe it is 151, called Centering into the 0 Point, which will tell you all about the zero. To be in that space is a place of your greatest empowerment. It's also the place of the greatest stability. Okay? So if you're constantly bringing yourself into your awareness, you'll start to realize, like, okay, how am I right now? What is it that I really am afraid of? Like, I feel fear. Okay, all right. What is it that I'm truly afraid of? You see, because then you start to have like the ability to discern the distortion, how much control it has over you, how much distance you have from it. Then, if you want to, play a GFC to help you to center back into yourself and have that distance and to remove the distortion. Confirming the removal of the distortion is really huge. In addition, what will happen is your frequency resonance starts to rise. You'll notice you'll have kind of like a mixed bag, right? You'll have these moments of fear. And then you'll also have moments of centeredness, moments where you notice beauty, moments where you feel extreme gratitude for life, where you have gratitude for the learning that you're gaining, where you feel like, yes, I can rise to this challenge. I won't be cowed. I refuse to allow myself to do that. Okay. And there are moments where you're going to feel terrified, but you start to have variation in how you feel because you're claiming over and over again the center of yourself and your own authority. So that's what I mean by finding your center, even in the midst of a financial meltdown, because the financial meltdown is an external circumstance, right? It's about how strong you are internally, irrespective of what's happening around you. And that's why frequency work can be so effective, because you oddly feel calm and centered and aware of a higher perspective. By the way, it doesn't mean non emotional. It just means you're aware of the higher perspective of you as the big S self, as infinite, indestructible consciousness that's aware of the infiniteness of everything and of you. And this is a tiny point in time, which is important and which you can learn from.
Well, I mean, I couldn't have put it better myself. No, I think the one thing that kept us going was exactly that. There's always one thing you should have in the handbag.
Yeah.
It's your location. Where is your body, your
Mhm.
spatial location, and every time the mind started to get a louder voice, I would just come straight in. Right, wait, where's my big toe? Okay, where's the end of the toenail compared to the heel? I would just be so granular with it
Mhm.
that my mind didn't have a chance.
Right.
And then I would start playing the GFCs. But when you release the 6 core essentials,
Yeah.
that's just gold, pure
Yeah.
gold. Even
Thank-
now to this day, I will start practicing that when the external fear
Mhm.
and I get triggered by it.
Mhm.
Boom, 6 core essentials, put on now.
Yeah, and that's mastery and momentum for those of you who don't know. And
Aye.
that one, I feel like that was a really important uh, series to give because
Yeah,
it's about self empowerment. Like, I'm
totally.
not here to create codependency with you, I'm here to empower you. And the thing is, it can feel like you're swimming upstream. Like, honestly, like when I began, I was just like, good Lord, really, again, the distortion pattern of fear, lineage patterns, whatever. It's like over and over and over again. I'm like, like, like really, how much more do I have to clear?
How many
How many
times?
times? Like, how many times do I have to surrender? How much more do I have to release? Apparently, there was more, right?
Mhm.
There still is. It's like an
Oh,
infinite growth, right? So
we're human.
we're human, and that's part of what it is that we're here to experience. And what I will say is, it does get faster.
Yeah.
It gets faster, your awareness is clearer, your perspective shifts, you start to see more of the brilliance and the richness of life. It's not just me that does it, and you're experiencing it. Lots of other
Lots
people are
of people.
experience that. We get to hear a lot of different amazing testimonials from people who write in, which is really lovely. So thank you all for sharing. And I think that a lot of people right now are experiencing financial loss.
Yeah. Yeah. I know people that have invested
Mhm.
in supposedly companies that have an amazing reputation, have been going on for years, and these companies have gone bankrupt
Mhm.
and their money's just vanished.
Yeah,
What do they do? Do they freak out? I mean, you're entitled to your freak out
of
moment,
course.
right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's a human experience. You came here for that, but do you let it take over?
exactly.
Yeah, and like I've always taught my sons, do you become a victim of it?
Yeah.
Or do you choose this moment now to become a success of it?
Yes.
Take your pick,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. And the thing is, I know it's going to sound potentially a little like I'm trying to soothe you. I'm not. What I'm suggesting is you are choosing to have the experience to strengthen. You've given it to yourself and you're like, well, this experience sucks. So, Karen, I don't really understand why I would choose suffering. You're choosing something painful so that you can understand that you have the strength to transcend it, so that you can grow from it, so that you can rise, so that you can no longer need these external things. Like a lot of times, I'll just get back up in terms of myself. For me, I had a lot of scarcity stuff. So a lot of fear around money is a really strong lineage pattern for me. And when Chris and I were had our own little business in San Francisco, we were real estate agents and we helped people buy and sell homes. And um, so we never knew exactly who was going to buy a home when, or who was going to sell a home when clients would come in, when they would actually do something, etc. So we knew we couldn't control it. So I was always like terrified that we wouldn't have enough. And I would always be spreadsheeting away as to like what it is that we had in the bank and how much we had and how much cushion we had and all this sort of stuff. And Chris would always find me like hunched over my computer doing these little spreadsheets. It was a delightful time for him, I'm sure. But in any case, he was always like, we have enough. And it didn't matter how much we had. I always felt like, well, the cushion needs to be bigger. It needs to be bigger. It needs to be bigger. So when I started my journey with frequency work, and I'm not saying you have to experience it. For me, this was my journey. It never was enough. Okay. It didn't matter how much money we had in the bank. It always felt like we were kind of screwed, right? We were on the precipice of financial loss. Okay. So when I started frequency work, I had to release my patterns are around fear of scarcity. And man, so I started releasing. What happened? So I had to really get to that point of active surrender that you did. I'm not saying everyone does. I did for me because my scarcity patterns were like off the charts. So for me, what had to happen is our business actually evaporated. Okay. So literally, we're at like 30% of the income we were making before. All right. So we're at 30% of our income, costs the same. We live in a very expensive city. And I'm like, oh God, right? It was terrible. And so we had clients, but they were all hesitating or something wasn't working in terms of actual money coming in. A lot of potential, no actual closed sales. Man, those couple of months were freaking hard, man. It was like I was walking through the fire. And it came to this pivotal moment. I'll never remember that. I'll never forget this. We had this client who looked like a very high-end client, okay? They had tons of control patterns, and we'd done all this work to get their luxury condo ready for sale, like tons of work. So tons of man hours, we'd invested money in it, like all this sort of stuff. And literally, these clients were abusive, which never happened with our clients. We actually really had very lovely clients most of the time. We'd have very high referral rate. We had a really what I feel was a very an integrity business. So we're at a point, remember, that we're at 30% of our income. But it came to the point that I had to be okay with firing them. I had to let them go. And I was just like, oh my God, like this one sale is gonna like resolve a lot of issues because now we're starting to go into debt. We're like, oh my God, how we're gonna pay for this next thing, whatnot. And I'm like freaking out. So my spreadsheets are all in red. It's not a good scene. Chris is dealing with me. I'm getting a stress rash, like all this sort of stuff, right? And I was like, well, damn it. And so I just kept going, like you did. I was like, I am not going to allow myself to be controlled by this. Like at this cost, this money is not worth it to me. I'm like, it's not. Like I'm not going to let myself be ruled by this anymore.
Yeah.
And so
because you're worth more.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
Ultimately.
Ultimately, yeah. And I'm like, this is just money. But I had to get there. And then finally, I remember this big talk. We had to fire them. And it was weird, like literally the next day. Like we released it. And we didn't do it to have an outcome.
Yeah.
We just did it because we were like, it's not sustainable. It's not allowable. Literally, maybe it wasn't the next day, maybe I'm exaggerating. The next 2 days, all of a sudden clients started coming in, ping, 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 ping. And I was like, where did they go? Like, where have they been? Like literally out of the woodwork. And it's funny because in that moment of the releasing of them, it didn't matter to me that those clients came in as much.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, totally get that.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
The minute that my resonance was high enough to change my reality, and I became happier and had this wholeness and wellness, internal wholeness and wellness, and I was content. I wasn't looking for anything. And more stuff came. It was like this universal magic,
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, I wasn't looking for that, but yeah,
I'll
I'll take
that.
that.
Yeah, thank you. Exactly. So I say that because it's not like we're talking about this with callousness.
No,
You
we've
know?
been there.
Yeah, we've been there. And so what I will say is, even if it seems like loss, even if you have that freak out, like, that moment where I was just like, oh my God, we've got to fire them. Crap. And you're looking at the credit card statements and you're looking at the bank account and you're like, crap. Right? And you go through that fire anyway and you release those patterns. Just know that you're giving this to yourself to strengthen.
Yeah.
So that you can rise to a higher degree of resonance. Remember, money is an amplifier. So when you hit that higher level of abundance, you don't have the same distortion anymore because you just released it. So that means that it's clearer and brighter, and it changes your nature, your experience of it, your response to it, because you're not always like, remember in that previous scenario, even though we had a lot, it felt like I had nothing because it was never enough. Well, once I released that, it didn't matter what I had. Do you see what I'm saying? I wasn't reliant on it in the same way. So when we did have the money, I could actually enjoy it because I wasn't terrified that we were going to lose it.
Yeah.
It's the strangest thing.
It's like it keeps perpetuating the same creation when you're worrying about losing it.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
heard a great phrase, I guess, that if you know, worry is like praying for something to happen.
That's right.
It's a great
Yeah.
line, you know. I always keep it in my mind. And coming back to your point that you're going to be human, you're going to get scared, you're going to get terrified, all them amazingly painful human experiences.
Yeah.
But it's to find that strength, because that's really what it's about, right? Internally, to gather that strength and say, okay, I'm going to do it scared until I'm not scared,
Yes.
but I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's not about fearlessness
Mhm.
because you're afraid. You're doing it, but you do it anyway. So that's what I mean by being centered, right, in the
Mhm.
middle of the financial meltdown, and to thrive. So who thrives in a financial meltdown? And you know, it's funny because a lot of people will think of people, well, they're predatory, they're taking advantage of people when they're down. And all that. Those are the people. That's the story that's perpetuated. The people that thrive in a financial crisis. It's actually not those people. I mean, yes, there is that. Obviously, that happens.
So there's a message of helplessness in
In
there.
that, yeah,
Isn't
exactly.
there, right? That you are all helpless
Helpless.
now.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
my thing is, it's like those who thrive are able to hold their space, actually. The ones who are not allowing their frequency resonance to be rocked by the collective experience.
Yeah.
Because why? Because when you hold your frequency resonance up, when everyone else's frequency resonance is like tinking, all of a sudden you're just like, oh, like there's more opportunity that's available to me that I'm seeing that maybe other people aren't. And I'm not so attached to like grabbing onto that thing because it's my last remaining hope. It's like, okay, there's this opportunity. I'm going to see how that feels to me. Oh, look, there's another one that shows up. It's because you're keeping your frequency resonance high. So that's how you thrive, is to be like aware of your own vibrational rate, your own resonance, the story of those around you, how that feels. Do you want to participate in that story? How much? Can you hold your own resonance despite what's going on around you? Then that is when you start to thrive, because there's always people in these moments of financial meltdown that thrive not because they're predatory, but because they're serving other people. They're finding a need. And they're like, oh, that's weird. I can help people by doing this. And then all of a sudden, something new comes in, and they start to gain. The other people that they're serving start to gain. You know, and this spiral happens, which is of awesomeness.
Yeah.
So there's this weird story that we have as a collective that only those who thrive in a financial meltdown are like oppressive, greedy, horrible to others. That's not true.
It could be true, but there is another story
Yes.
that nobody wants to buy into.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
It's like, yeah, okay, that could be happening across there, but it doesn't mean it can't happen here.
Yes,
In a
exactly.
nicer win-win collective way.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So I guess you're right. So my point is that's not the only thing that's happening.
Yeah.
To your point. So anyway, let me just see. I think we're going to open the floor now to questions from the audience. Okay. Hopefully Chris will have them pop up. Oh, this is a question from Lucio. How do we draw a line between letting go of control and knowing when to take action when it comes to financial challenges? When to listen to your gut versus your mind? That's funny. That's a ancient, not funny to me. It's an interesting, fascinating question. So my answer would be to always follow your gut, but to be aware of. So I just want to preface this. So when you have a gut instinct that's clear, you know it. There's no reason that you know it. You're just like, it's this. Sometimes you have to be aware of when you want something to be a certain way. So you have fear that it's not going to be a certain way. So you know what I mean? Like you try to grab towards that thing. A gut instinct is one that's like super clear, and it may not make sense. And you're like, oh my God, oh my God, I can't believe that this is my feeling. But to follow that, does that make sense? To not follow something that is like spiraled up or amplified by fear. Okay, so just to be aware of that. And to notice if you're doing something out of fear, which is usually an indication of the mind. The mind is very fear-based. Okay, it's like you shouldn't do that because of this might happen. If you do this, then this might happen. It's like fear-based. But instinct is more about like something that can call you. Okay, it doesn't make sense, but it's more like expanse. It may not make sense. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. Okay, just to be clear, Chris is correct. So, but it's like something that compels you towards something else. Does that make sense? It doesn't have the fear aspect until your mind kicks in and is like, oh no, what about this? What about that? That could happen. Okay, does that make sense? When that fear kicks in, know that that is your mind and to hang on to that gut instinct, okay, and to follow it. So I'm not saying it's easy, right? When you have a knowingness, sometimes what I used to do when I would have these knowingnesses is I would write them down or I would voice record them because sometimes what would happen is I'd have the knowingness or the instinct or the intuition, and then my mind would take off with all this fear. And then, of course, if you ask other people their opinion, their minds will have a lot of fear. So you have to be really careful about other people's fear patterns because they're worried about you, all this sort of different stuff. Okay. So to be aware of fear. And then what I would do is I would look at that little note of whatever it is I recorded, or I'd listen to myself saying, my feeling is it's this. To remember, okay, that was the resonance of that time when I had that knowing. I'm going to follow that. Does that make sense? Because fear is really easy to get enmeshed in, and your mind can spiral in all of these different scenarios that might happen. So to really to write those things down. Now, if you don't have the courage to follow it or the confidence to follow in that particular moment, okay, and then notice what happens. Okay, and then the next time you have that intuition or that instinct, to write it down again and be like, okay, well, I followed it last time. It went really well. Or I didn't follow it last time. And at the time when I didn't follow, I was like, dang it, I should have done that thing. So then the next time it happens, to be like, okay, this is what happened last time. This is my instinct. And then perhaps that time you will have the courage or the confidence to follow. Does that make sense? So it's not about beating yourself up. It's just noticing and to track by writing those things down. That can help you, okay, have the momentum to follow what it is that you know, as opposed to what the fear that your mind can whip up. Mhm. Okay, great. What if you aren't able to gauge those opportunities and they pass you by? Is there ever a better one to come, or are you signaling to the universe that you're not ready? Huh. Okay. So what I would suggest is it's interesting in this question. So thank you for asking it. So what I would say is that this question has to do, there's a fear in this question. Okay. And the fear is I need the certainty to know that this is the correct thing because I only have one opportunity. Does that make sense? Like, so the fear is based in scarcity. I'm not going to have another opportunity. There's always, okay, so let me just back up. There is the field of the infinite. All possibilities exist in the field. As you are creating, you start to access more and more possibilities. So even if one is not apparent to you right now, part of what you may be learning is like, okay, I gave up that opportunity. What comes up with me for giving up that opportunity? What comes up for me if I take it? So if the common denominator in all that is fear that you might be missing out, fear of the unknown, fear that you won't have enough, like that kind of fear where you need the certainty, then it's about doing the work to release those distortion patterns. Because then what happens is a different kind of shift where you don't, the opportunities showing up isn't a signal to you. It's just like you don't need them in the same way. And as you surrender and you don't need them in the same way, oddly, more come in. But what's happening right now is that there is a lack of trust in self, that you can create something better, that something is there, that there isn't just one opportunity, that there actually are many opportunities. Make sense? So hopefully that helps. But that's really the distortion pattern that's running there. And it's important to look at them and to release them because that's underlying this question. Hopefully that makes sense. Chris, do you have anything that you want to add? Okay. Fee, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I would have
Okay.
said the same. It's a lack of belief that you can create.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So I think that was all the questions that we had. Thank you so much for asking them. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump right into the GFC, and it will be about how to center and to thrive in a time of financial chaos. So we're going to jump right in. Settling in. Let's rise together. Becoming aware of your body, please. And as you become aware of your body, noticing your entire back body, from the crown of your head all the way over the back of the skull, the back of the neck, the backs of your arms, all the way down the upper back, lower back, your butt, backs of the thighs, backs of the knees, over the backs of your calves and down the backs of your heels. Noticing your back body, what it's touching. Mhm. For a moment, becoming aware of your breath, please. Just noticing it. And then after you've noticed your breath as it is, without changing it, for a couple of breaths, allowing the breath to really sink deeper into the body. To take up more space. To become much longer. Good. And as your breath expands and starts to take up more room, starting to imagine it expanding and contracting in all directions around you like a balloon. Yeah. Cultivating spherical awareness. And as you cultivate spherical awareness, simply by imagining your breath expanding and contracting like a balloon all around you, you start to open to non-linear possibility and magic. Good. Bringing your attention to your heart space now, please. And for just a moment, becoming aware of your relative position in the space that you're in. So, for example, if you're in a room or even a car, you would notice the distance between the wall in front of you, the wall behind you, the wall to your left, the wall to your right, the ceiling above you, and the floor beneath you. Mhm. And as you are becoming more aware of your relative location in the space that you're in, pulling you further into the 0 point of space and time. Becoming aware now of the heart space in the very center of your chest, in your nipple line. And as you become aware of this space, bringing a hand or a finger to this space if it helps you focus, asking yourself the question, how can I become even more aware of my connection only to pure source? And as you ask yourself that question, as many of you know, whether you're aware of it or not, your higher self quickens your own frequency resonance. So it's like you're starting to take a running jump. I'm going to catch you on the top end of that leap and pull your vibration or frequency resonance even higher, irrespective of where your resonance began. As many of you know, how high your frequency resonance or vibrational level is dictates everything from what your reality looks like, how you feel about it, how quickly you can release distortion patterns, how much change you can actually sustain. So, this is one of the most important things we do together. Good. Bringing your attention, or keeping your attention rather, in your heart space and right in the center of your solar plexus. Okay, so there's a tangle of distortion here. The first is the fear of loss, of not having enough. And then right behind it are control patterns, so that you do feel fear that you will not have enough. And when you have those fear patterns, so much easier to control. So releasing these, really keeping your attention in these two spaces. For a number of you, this is a mix of not only these distortions, but lineage patterns and control patterns, oddly, through religion and culture. Mhm. Noticing where your attention is, bringing your awareness back to these two parts of the body. If it started to wander, imagining, sensing, feeling, or becoming aware of these distortion patterns crumbling, dissolving, and disintegrating away from you. Uh-huh. Good. Bringing your attention now to the heart space, all the way down through the center of the body to the belly button. So, this is the fear of survival. Okay. So, this can be manipulated, okay, where you feel like, oh, I can't, I don't have enough, I'm not going to survive. That impending doom sort of fear. Okay. So, whether this is in yourself or you're sensitive to it in others, releasing this. And there is a small, small subgroup here that is attached to this story of the impending doom, the potential of not surviving. So, what happens is this feeds into a victim state, a disempowerment, and into a pattern of identity, okay? Even if you don't really want it. Imagining, sensing, feeling, or becoming aware of the brilliant blackness of the void. So, the void is a place of absolute nothingness and absolute potential. It is a place of dissolution. So, imagining that brilliant blackness that will dissolve what no longer serves you and holds the potential of the infinite that has yet to come into form. Uh huh. Bringing your attention to the center of your heart space, please, and the center of your pineal gland. Okay. This has to do with holding your own space from other people's like fear of scarcity, of lack. It's really getting loud. So that's their experience, their pattern. So giving you space so you can be aware of it, but not impacted by it. Now there's a little subgroup here that feels bad, okay, or guilty. Like you should be part of that whole experience because somehow that means you have empathy, compassion, or kindness. You have to suffer with them. You can, and you don't have to, because ultimately, it does not free them. It only binds you. So let's release this. Yep. Imagining, sensing, feeling, becoming aware of a really brilliant, deep blue. Yep. That starts to expand from deep within, out through your center, and out in all directions around you. Good. Becoming aware of your heart space, please. And right in the center of your solar plexus. Your solar plexus is between your belly button and the base of your sternum, which is that big, thick bone in the center of your chest, where your ribs meet in front of your body. So, right in the center of that space. So, pulling you even further into your own center. Pushing away these external reference points. For some of you, these external reference points will start to dissolve. An external reference point is other people's stories, emotions, feelings, experiences, circumstances. Yeah. In addition to this fear that there will not be enough. Okay. Your own and sensitivity to other people's fear of that same thing. Okay. Noticing where your attention is. Bringing your awareness back to this part of the body, the very center of your solar plexus, the very center of your heart space. Mm-hmm. Good. Bringing your attention now, please, to the xiphoid process, right at the base of the sternum. And about 3 inches or 7 centimeters directly beneath it in a straight line down towards the belly button. Clearing out the pain body. Because as many of you know, your pain body holds a memory of you before the frequency work was done. So by clearing this out, your integration into the higher resonating version of you will be easier and smoother. There we go. Good. Everyone taking a big breath in, holding it for a count of 3, 2, 1, then exhaling with some sound. Huh. Good. Whenever you're ready, blinking your eyes open, looking at something inanimate. All right, guys. Thank you for joining, and I look forward to however we work together next. Bye for now.